Lucius the Eternal, Lord Commander of the Emperor's Children Traitor Legion and champion of the Chaos God Slaanesh. A master swordsman, he has honed his skill over millennia of war. Slaanesh's boon upon him allows him to be reborn in the body of his killer, if said assailant experiences even the tiniest sliver of joy in the kill. In this way, he has been reincarnated from the bodies of Astartes, Eldari, Orcs, and even Necrons, which really speaks of his quote-unquote unmatched sword skill, huh? He is now missing. In 076 M42, on a battle fought along the Honorary Emperor's Children warband, known as the Angels of Ecstasy, against a tendril of Hive Fleet Kraken, jealousy overtook him and he duelled the Angels' warlord, Amatus Centanus, cutting his chain fist-bearing arm off. In a moment of gloating, however, the weapon, in fact a demonette-possessed Narthessium, known as the Sunshiner, hurled itself at him and gravely wounded him. Amatus, knowing of Lucius's abilities, stabilized him, leaving the swordsman crippled but alive to fend for himself against the upcoming rush of chitinous blades. Upon a veritable hill composed of dead Hormagaunts, Tyranid warriors and scythe-limbed carnifexes, a Hive tyrant duelled the wounded Lucius over the course of days. After completing its kill, and thus eliminating the last scrap of resisting biomass from the planet, the tyrant, itself a being, granted a great degree of autonomy and free thought by the hive mind, did indeed feel pride in the completion of its objective. And then it walked straight into a digestion pool. A hive ship, one among hundreds, or, well, thousands, within the tendril, fed on the nutrient gruel the hive tyrant had become, and in its strange and alien mental process, felt satisfaction. As the fleet began its preparation to translate onto new feeding grounds, Lucius's soul attempted to ascertain itself and mold the form of his killer into his new body. Alas, this killer had not one body, but millions, and so his soul began to fray and unravel. It was then that, either by the turn of fate or Slaanesh's will, the Cicatrix Maledictum tore a new warp storm which swallowed dozens of hive ships into the immaterium. Months later, the Maelstrom spat out a single hive ship into real space. Lucius's soul, powered by the raw energy of the warp, had endured and taken control of the hive ship and every Tyranid life form it spawned, dampening the connection the vessel had to the rest of the hive mind, but was ultimately unable to coalesce into a single, reborn Astartes body. His psyche was torn, pulled in every direction by different minds, all trying to become him. Thus, the Hive Fleet Banshee was born. Creatures of the Hive Fleet Banshee can be identified by their pale grey exoskeleton and a carapace that, while containing only a dull grey-green pigment, appears a vivid magenta due to the iridescent refraction of light by its chitin. Nowhere is Lucius's essence coalesced tighter than in the Hive Tyrant that killed him. Now the creature is spawned with 3 bone sabers and a lash whip, which the essence of the Emperor's Children's swordsman brings to a technique that can rival even the Swarm Lord. It is for this reason that this being is known by those few who know the truth as the Luscious Lord. A theory put forward by Amatus Centanus is that specific creatures birthed by Hive Fleet Banshee are representations of Lucius's psyche, or mental constructs of people that keep him anchored to whatever is left of him that could be called sanity. For example, while the Luscious Lord encompasses Lucius's perfection in swordsmanship and command, a second Swarm Lord exemplifies the utter senseless brutality he is capable of committing when order is not enough. This quote-unquote bestial drops from the skies on leathery wings, pummeling any resistance with powerful pincer claws. Even as smaller blades connect to them, each with a brain of its own, unerringly finds any chink in the target's armor. A Trigon Prime with a shimmering carapace often seen deployed by the Banshee has the odd behavior of seeking out underground water pockets in its digging, emerging from the ground in a fountain of its own making. This creature, then, must be Lucius's representation of Fulgrim, whose name in Camosian meant the Waterbringer. A rather small malanthrope, scouring corpse fields with its steel-cutting tentacles, is a nod to Fabius Bile's existence within Lucius's mind. The Song of Death, the music of raw combat sung in the rush of blood to the ears, and the sound of the battlefield which Lucius first heard upon Eastvan III, is lost to him in his new form, and he tries to compensate with an orchestra of his own. Biovores provide the drumming rhythm with the explosions of their spore mines, while broods of screamer killers provide the whistles of organ music, emulated with their spore banks, spore chimneys, and their deadly ululating scream. Vocals are provided in a psychic sense by neurothropes, which have been designated as hive singers. One of the most disturbing features of Hivefleet Banshee's connections to Lucius is the way in which the corridors of its bioship have the faces of his previous killers growing out of them, in an approximation of his armor of shrieking souls. These heads are clearly made from the ship's biomatter, displaying mostly human features, with some Orc, Eldari, and even Necron specimens found now and then. Hivefleet Banshee acts much differently than the average Tyranid force, if anything about the Tyranids can be considered average. Firstly, it eschews the use of gene stealers, assumedly because they clash with Lucius's aesthetic sense. Instead, the Banshee hijacks the psychic signal of gene stealer cults seeded by other fleets, and somehow arrives to the defending grounds before the other Tyranids, eliminating the cult and any other opposition, feeding, then leaving before the other fleet arrives. Secondly, the Banshee does not feed on the entire biosphere of planets, electing to feed just enough to keep its biovessels well fed and at a constant size. This, compounded with the Banshee's habit of targeting planets with powerful oppositions, speaks not only of Lucius's surviving duelist pride, but perhaps of his desire for an opponent worthy enough to defeat the Banshee in its entirety, and allow Lucius's soul to be freed and reborn through them. After being spewed out of the maelstrom, the Banshee has carved a bloody path through Ultima Segmentum, following the curve of the galactic arm and making its course unerringly towards the temporary rift corridor. It is believed it plans to pass through the corridor and make for the planet Kalia, the base of operations of the Angels of Ecstasy, to exact a terrible vengeance upon the Warband.